In today's video, we're going to talk about the motivations of some of the most successful people on the planet, like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and the people who are working for them. We're going to cover a lot of ground talking about AI, climate change, nuclear war. There's a lot to go through, so let's get started. If this is your first time on the show, my name is Matt Jertson. I'm a former Air Force instructor pilot, former head of training and development at SpaceX, and now I run a company called Better Everyday Studios, where we help turn great engineers into great managers. Today's conversation might be a little bit different, or at least it'll start different than a lot of the things we normally talk about on this channel. But hey, it's my podcast, so I'm going to do what I want with it. And I really enjoy talking about this stuff. I promise you I will bring it full circle at the end. We're going to start this episode getting kind of geeky. As you can probably tell, I'm kind of a space geek, so I'm going to geek out for a little bit. Then we're going to bring that back to the motivations of literally the most successful people on the planet, at least from a financial perspective, of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and the people who work for them. And then we'll bring it full circle to talk about what this means for all managers. Okay, so let's get a little bit nerdy here. I want to talk about three major concepts with you. I need to talk about the Fermi Paradox, the Drake equation, and the Great Filter. Many of you listening probably have no idea what any of those terms mean, so let me describe them. The Fermi Paradox is something that was proposed by a scientist named Enrico Fermi. He was actually the person to make the world's first nuclear reactor. He was part of the Manhattan Project. And the Fermi Paradox essentially says, where is everybody? Right? We look around the galaxy, we look around the universe, there's all these stars, there's all this space. Where is everybody? We have hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy. There's maybe hundreds of billions of galaxies in our universe. The universe has been around for over 13 billion years. Even if we can't travel faster than light, if there are successful civilizations out there, chances are they rose up millions of years ago. There's no reason why they didn't. And by now they should have spread across the entire galaxy. So what's up, right? Where is everybody? We have programs like SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, that's out there looking for proof of not just life, but intelligence life, of civilizations out there amongst the stars. We've been looking for it for decades, and we haven't found anything. One SETI researcher, a man named Frank Drake, created something called the Drake equation that wasn't necessarily meant to directly address the Fermi paradox, but it was meant to help us kind of come up with a number of how many civilizations we might expect to have in the galaxy along with us. And so it's this big, long equation with a whole bunch of terms. We don't know the answer to those terms, but if we did, we would be able to come up with a number of how many alien civilizations we could expect to find out there. So let's go through these terms one at a time. First, and this isn't exactly of the initial equation, I'm simplifying a little bit, but first, number of stars. How many stars are out there in the galaxy? We know that number. That is a very large number, right? Hundreds of billions of stars. The fraction of stars with planets. Now, when I was born, we did not know the answer to this question, as the answer to this term. As far as we knew, we were the only solar system in the universe. So we didn't know the answer. But now we have a pretty good guess. We really do know the answer because starting back in the 90s, we started to detect planets around other stars. And we now basically know that if it's a star, it has planets. Like there's planets everywhere. Okay, so the first number of stars is very large. Fraction of those stars with planets, also very large. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's a lot of stars have planets. This third term, fraction of those planets that can support intelligent life. Again, for a long time, we didn't know the answer to this. Even when we first started finding planets, we didn't think it didn't look like any of them could support life. But a lot of that turned out to be because of how we were detecting these planets. Just because of the way we find planets since they're so far away, some of the early detection methods, I mean, all the detection methods, but especially the early detection methods lent themselves to finding extremely large planets that were very close to their parent star. So it's like, imagine Jupiter orbiting the sun where Mercury is. Like those were the kinds of planets that we found. As we've improved our detection methods, we keep finding smaller and smaller planets. And so chances are a good portion of the planet, there is some fraction, some sizable fraction out there of planets that seem like they could support life. So those are the first three figures. We know we have a good guess. We know we have a good guess at all three of these: number of stars, fraction of stars with planets, fraction of planets that can support life. So fraction of Earth-like planets. Now is when we get into a bunch of terms that we have no idea of. Fraction of those planets where life actually arises, the fraction of it that becomes intelligent, the fraction of intelligent life that develops technology, especially spacefaring technology, and then how long do those civilizations last? Those four terms are the things that we do not have answers for. So that's why still getting to a number of things out there, we have no idea. But we can start to guess at those. So now let's put these two things together. We got the Fermi Paradox and the Drake equation, where the Fermi Paradox is where is everybody? And the Drake equation is kind of this list of things that have to be true in order for you to have a starfaring, a spacefaring civilization. And a thing that kind of comes out of that is kind of related to this is this idea of the great filter. The great filter says that if life just tends to grow and move, but we don't see any life out there, there must be some big filter that keeps things from moving forward. And you can kind of apply this to the Drake equation, right? Like it could have been that when we went out and looked for planets around other stars, we didn't find any. And so the great filter was just planetary formation, right? If a planet doesn't form, you can't have life. So that's why there's no life. And thus, we are already past the great filter. Hooray, us. So now we have every reason to believe that we're going to continue going into the future. Amazing. We found lots of planets, so we know that's not the great filter. It could still be that life is a, trillion to one thing to even happen. Or it could be, and so we haven't found anything out there. So it might be that was our lottery ticket. And again, we are past the great filter because life occurring is the thing that is the answer to the paradox, the Fermi paradox. The answer to it is that there's a really low probability that life occurs. Or it could be that there's a really low probability that intelligent life occurs, right? And if either of those things were the quote unquote the great filter, we're past them. Hooray. We have every reason to believe our civilization is going to continue on into the future. But as I said, we have no idea what those terms are. It could be, if we might go to Mars and continue to research on Mars and find life there. If let's say we found life on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Those are the three bodies in the solar system that are probably the most likely to contain life. If we found life on all three of those and they were all, and it all showed that they like arose independently, for me personally, that would freak me out. I would be amazed, but it would really freak me out because it would be one more reason to believe that we are not yet past the great filter. Because what if the initial, those things we don't know of, how often life occurs, how often that life becomes intelligent, how often that intelligence develops technology. What if all three of those are just a natural progression that just happen? And it turns out the great filter is something that those civilizations do to themselves that prevent them from exploring and colonizing the galaxy. They develop nuclear weapons and kill themselves. They poison their planet and they die off. They develop artificial intelligence and it turns on them and destroys them. These are all things that we're grappling with now. And if we do make it out there, if let's say we snapped our fingers and we could travel the stars, there is every possibility that we would find civilizations everywhere that just died off really quickly because they couldn't sustain themselves. They became too powerful. They didn't, their psychologies didn't advance as quickly as their technology. And so they started fighting, or they did something else, and it just ended up. And that's where the great filter is, that we haven't, everything that we've gotten to up to this point is just natural progression. And the answer to the Fermi paradox is because no alien civilization has figured out how to get past the point that we are at right now. That's can be kind of terrifying. And strangely enough, maybe you're someone who has never thought of this before. This is the kind of thing that drives, that motivates some of the most successful people on the planet. Elon Musk talks about this a lot, right? He talks a lot about how we are in this very unique moment right now where we have the technological wherewithal to get out into space. And we haven't destroyed ourselves yet. So we got to get out of here. We got to go. We got to move. We got to expand. Because as far as we know, we are the only life in the universe. We are the only consciousness in the universe, as far as we know. And I don't know, I think consciousness is a pretty cool thing. I think it's pretty amazing. What's the point of all of this stuff out here if it's not for something to explore it and to understand it and to question it? And so we need to be doing everything in our power to make sure we are prepared and can move forward and keep ourselves alive, right? Keep consciousness alive in this amazing universe that we live in. That might sound crazy. I know it sounds crazy to a lot of people. I know this because, I was in speech and debate when I was in college. And even though I'm a huge space nut, anytime that I debated on space topics, I would always lose, because I didn't realize that like other people cared about different things than I cared about. Things like existential risk, the end of humanity. Like for some reason, I'm just wired where I really care. I'm really, that's a very salient thing to me. And it's really salient to people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, who wants to move all industrial engineering, all industrial creation out into space. That's kind of what Blue Origin's long-term goals is trying to be: millions of people living and working in space. And believe it or not, it's also the motivation of a lot of the people that work for them, because there's a company I know, a talent recruiting company called Ad Astra, and it's made up of a husband and wife team. The husband used to work at SpaceX, and when he left SpaceX, they started this recruiting firm. It's kind of a boutique recruiting firm for tech startups. And they were already interested in space. They had a lot of connections in space, but they didn't want to be just a space recruiting company. So they thought, what adjacent things, what other industries would make sense that people in space would want to go work for? And interestingly enough, when they first tried to transition to other forms of aerospace, like drones or autonomous aerial vehicles, things like that, flying cars, the people who were interested in space weren't interested in those industries. The thing they were most interested in is clean energy, right? Whether it's, small scale nuclear or nuclear fusion or all these kinds of companies. And I think it's because there is, maybe they don't say it exactly like I said it, and it's kind of a nerdy way to say it, but there is some element of protecting humanity, and furthering humanity that is a core of what motivates them, right? So I know first section I went super, super nerdy and geeky, but believe it or not, like that idea is one of the things that really, really motivates these people, and it motivates them to do amazing things. They are like accomplishing the impossible out there in the world. And the reason they're doing that is because they are motivated by this higher purpose. So what does this mean for you if you're a manager at any company, right? The takeaway that I would have for you is that when you look at the most successful people in the world, not just Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, but like, all the people who work from the people who are working for these really successful companies, the one thing that's really important is they have a very strong, motivating vision, right? They have something that they are trying to achieve, not just achieve, but achieve for a reason. There's a higher purpose. And no matter where you work, where you are, that is one of your primary jobs as a manager. If you want to have a high-performing team, you need to understand the motivations of the people who are on your team and connect the work you are doing to what motivates them. Now, maybe, in a perfect world, they are motivated by the customer, right? You should be thinking about who is your customer, how are you serving your customer, what problem are you solving for your customer, for the world, and that's what motivates them. If that's not what motivates them, there's a couple different ways you could do that. Maybe they're not in the right place, and that's fine, and you need to be open about that. But I think the key thing is you need to be understanding what's the motivation of the people who work for you, and that's how you're going to succeed. Places like SpaceX, they're populated with people who drink the Kool-Aid, basically. It's not Kool-Aid to them, it's what they really believe. When SpaceX says their mission is to make life multiplanetary, they mean it, right? It's filled with thousands of people who that truly is what is driving them every single day. And that's why they are willing to work crazy hours. That's when I was that's what got me up and got me through all the frustration and the change and the things. It was because of that mission is what brought me forward. And so for you as a manager, I would just say that is the thing that you need to understand. Other people will have other motivations. Everybody's going to have different motivations. You need to understand the motivations of your team, figure out how to speak to it, and that's how you are going to create a truly high-performing team made up of highly motivated people. Okay, so this was a little bit weird. I get it. We went on kind of a long, nerdy tangent. But again, I love talking about this stuff, and it's my podcast, so I wanted to chat about it. But hopefully it gives you, some insight into, really, like some people are motivated by things that, maybe don't motivate you or you don't understand, and that's fine. So then the key thing is for you as a manager is what motivates your team and how can you speak to that motivation? That's how you can be successful. That's how you build a high-performing team. And hopefully you found that helpful. If you did, I would love it if you could share this show with some other people, because that's really how we grow. It really means a lot to me when you do that. And so I hope to see you next time on the Leadership Launchpad. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you are looking for help turning your organization's great engineers into great managers, me and my team at Better Everyday Studios would love to help. We deliver targeted and interactive training workshops that are designed to help build the 3 fundamental skills of any new manager: building trust, giving feedback, and setting goals. Reach out to me through matt@bettereverydaystudios.com so we can start making your organization better every day.